What's going on, everybody? This is Chris Classic dropping a carb. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Tuesday morning. If nobody tells you that God loves you, Christ loves you, and I love you as well, because I'm on the way to work. Praying for you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the Take It Home podcast, where I talk about professional wrestling topics, and I put up my matches as Classic out for a professional wrestler of 13 years. Make sure you also subscribe to C3 Ultimate Wrestling. That is me and my wife's professional wrestling company. We uploaded our first match from Fright Night yesterday, Kenny Nine versus D'Angelo Steele. Make sure you watch, comment, and also subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow will be the second match, which was Gustavo versus Miles Mercer versus Mr. Yama. Triple threat action, so make sure you subscribe to that. February 21st, 2026. Big Business, BIG Business, Dyer, Indiana, Harold's private venue. Get your tickets now. They're $5 off on Eventbrite, but they'll be $5 more at the door. Bars. God bless you, Raphael. Good hearing from you. Good seeing from you. I've been, like I said, I've been wrestling. Thank you guys for getting me with milestones so quick this year. I've been wrestling for 13 years. I think the time that I started, wrestling definitely was changing. The landscape of wrestling was changing from 13 years ago. From 2012 now to 2025, the landscape has changed tremendously, right? There's more wrestling companies. With the internet, you can get views and stuff. What you do on the internet as far as wrestling and anything can get you booked. Heck, you ain't even got to wrestle and be viral, and then you'll be booked for a wrestling show. You got people jumping off of tables and stuff, jumping on tables on top of cheese graters and microwaves and all kind of stuff, and then they get booked and stuff like that. The internet is definitely has been booming with people who are new stars, and then people who I think are hindering the business. So, like I said, when I came up, it wasn't a lot of wrestling companies. It wasn't even a lot of wrestling schools. I don't even think it's still a lot of wrestling schools. I just think a lot of people cosplay as wrestlers, and then they just think that they can wrestle. So those are also things to think about. So like when I'm very critical about certain things, it's one, because of how I was trained, and two, what I believe in with certain things of protecting the business and stuff. When I was starting, shows like PWG was like the biggest thing, like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, like people was looking at the stuff. And around that time, the Young Bucks and the Adam Coles and the Ricochets and the Will Ospreays and stuff, they were going to that show, the Callistos. They were doing a whole bunch of stuff at the show, and it started molding the landscape of what independent wrestling was. Like the super indie style, that's where that stuff was coming from. There's other shows too. They slip in my mind right now. You know, Ring of Honor was a big thing too, back in the day too. But still, it was just one of those things where like people talk about super indie, and then like now fast forward, people still like it, but they don't like it as much. Now people are tired of it. Now some people don't like Young Bucks matches. Some people don't even like the Usos matches because of all the super kicks and all of this stuff. Some people don't like kicking out of finishers. Some people don't like the ultra spam up finishers and the fighting spirits and the hulking up and the Hulkamania moments. Like a lot of people are starting to be sick of that for the past few years. And I'm happy, because I do think that wrestling does need to change. I've never been a fan of the super indie style of wrestling. I've always loved the old school stuff. Tell a story. Storytelling. I never liked the, okay, we got to kick out of everything. We got to kick stuff. We got to do things. I'm going to give you a power drop. You got to get up and hit me with another power drop. You got to trade power drops. I've never been that big of that. What's going on, Marty? I'm just talking about wrestling since I started. Has it gotten worse or has it gotten better? So I will say that, you know, I came in around the time where the Young Bucks and all of these other people, the Ricochets and the stuff, they started getting big. I remember Ricochet versus Will Ospreay, and was it New Japan or it was in Japan? And people loved it and people hated it. I didn't really care for the match, but the thing was, it went viral. And when it went viral, a lot of companies started booking Ricochet and Will Ospreay to have the same match. So you getting basically a different version of the same match. Oh, they booked, so many companies booked them, and that's, shout out to them in their wallet, but at the same time, people didn't even want to do anything new. They wanted to get what New Japan had. They wanted that match. It was to the point to where Ricochet and Will Ospreay, they had their women that had intergender matches with the same kind of stipulation and stuff. And it was like, to me, I was like, if I was a booker at the time, I wouldn't book the same match because we've seen this match already. Like, for real, kicking out of everything. Yeah, so like the kicking out of everything. So like going back into the AJ and the John Cena match. Love the match as a fan, but as a wrestler myself, I don't like that stuff. Maybe if it was a championship match, and I'll even give it grace as this is the last time they're going against each other. But the thing is, there's other matches on the card where people got kicked out of finishers and stuff. Like, to me, that's why I love the F5, because usually it's not a lot of people that kicked out of the F5. When you look at the history, it was to the point to where even when Brock Lesnar would show up every 3 months, when he hit somebody with the F5, people would get mad that nobody kicked out of it. I wasn't, because it's the F5. It's a finisher. That's what it's supposed to do. Everything is not meant to be kicked out. And to me, the landscape of wrestling, that's what it is now. That's what they're still doing and stuff like that, you know. I've had matches where people kicked out of my finisher, but it's not a common thing. It's very ultra rare that it happened. I could probably count, out of 12 years, maybe 4 times somebody kicked out of a finisher of mine. I'm trying to be sure. Yeah, 4 times. 4 times out of 13 years. You can look at somebody who's wrestled all the way up until now, from January to October, and I bet you they have people that kicked out 16 times out of, you know what I'm saying? So I can count on one finger how many times somebody kicked out of one of my finishes. I'm just saying. But still, yeah, for real, the kicking out, yeah, it's crazy. So that's like a bad thing. I think, you know, I don't want to just say it's the Young Bucks' fault, because the Young Bucks are just wrestling and stuff. They struggle now because they need to do something else, and nothing else is working because they've been doing this for so long. See, that's the thing. Times change, and sometimes things change, and what people want to see, they change and stuff. So now they've been doing it for so long that, like, when they try to do something else, some people like it, but some people just don't. I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, even the Usos, like, I love that it's a change in character and stuff, but when you look at their matches, excuse me, you're like, okay, what else? What else do you have? That's, you know, what else do you have? You know, I'm just saying. So, you know, the internet definitely started like booming a little bit more when it came to like wrestling and wrestling matches and certain aspects of wrestling. Like, when you go viral, that could help you. Like, some great matches have went viral, and that helped people get booked on WWE or Impact or ROH, and now even like AEW. But then you also have people that goes viral, or things that go viral, and or went on AEW, WWE, and people try to emulate it. Now, for example, deathmatch wrestling as a wrestler has always been looked down upon. Don't do that hardcore stuff. It's trash. Why would you do this stuff? Wrestling is dangerous as it is. John Cena is for so much. It's just been a lot of that. And that's like his whole thing with his whole career, final year is just kicking out of stuff. Non-title and title matches. But deathmatch wrestling, that's like, you know, when people are cutting each other, they're using the light tubes, they're hitting each other with it, they're cutting each other with barbed wire, blood is everywhere, they're stabbing each other. I seen somebody got hit with a weed whacker, weed eater. Like, that was so down upon. That was like the most dangerous thing, and people, even wrestlers, was like, don't do that. Why would you do that? You're gonna have to go to the hospital. Didn't want people to have dominoes. I wouldn't want no pizza looking at a pizza cutter slicing somebody open. But after that, a lot of people wanted to do death match. A lot of people was like, you know what? Before I retire, I want to do a death match. I just want to do a death match because that match was good. I wanted to see it and stuff like that. You know that Nick Gage is cool with Moxley, who's a guy who does some similar death match, hardcore bleeding all on people's stuff all the time. I'm still not a fan, and I wasn't a fan since then. I saw the Dark Side of the Ring episode of Nick Gage, and I'm like, okay, why would you book him? But that's just me. You know, he gets booked a lot. You know, GCW, it had a surgence and a resurgence when he wrestled on AEW. When that Dark Side of the Ring episode happened, he still gets booked. And a lot of people, I know a lot of my friends and stuff, I love them, they cool, but a lot of them, they do deathmatch wrestling, they be getting cut open, they be getting sliced. I ain't trying to do none of that. I ain't trying to do that. Wrestling is already dangerous. I ain't trying to do none of that. I'm cool on that, homie. Y'all got it. Y'all got it, big fella. Y'all got it. Women do it now, and it's way less appealing too. Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, they was wrestling and they was bleeding just for the sake of bleeding. They about to do that blood and guts match that so many of y'all are excited for, and I am not excited for no blood and guts match, an all women's blood and guts match. We've seen it already. They already been busted open. They've already been cut, stapled each other's private parts, going through tables, hitting each other's heads, chair shots, kindles. We've seen all of this stuff before. And the thing is, it runs out eventually. Eventually, you'll look at it and be like, okay, can y'all do something else? At this point, you're gonna have to shoot somebody. No YouTube guidelines, just figure of speech. Not actually doing that. You have to draw a sword, on guard, and you have to like sword fight with somebody, because at this point, y'all do every dang thing. Y'all do too much stuff. It's just crazy. What's the shot you, Nick Claus? But it's like, to me, with the internet, as soon as it goes viral, people try to emulate it because that's what people want to look at. So now people want to do deathmatch wrestling. There's companies that cater to deathmatch wrestling and stuff like that. To me, I don't do it, and no offense, but my opinion is I do think that hinders wrestling for a lot of other companies too, because honestly, when you're trying to wrestle or try to go to another venue, the viral stuff sometimes be the negative stuff. And they'll think, oh, well, I'm not going to book C3 because they do this stuff where they cut people open. And we don't do that kind of stuff. We promote family-friendly stuff. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, we'll stick to family-friendly. And that's what I'm going to stick to. Intergender wrestling, woman versus man, on the internet has been very, very viral. Like, when I started, that was rarely seen. Like, you would see, maybe only reason why you would see that back then is if there was no other women's wrestlers and they would face the men, but it wasn't a common thing. It was very, very rare or whatever. Side note, my wife is actually a heavyweight champion for the company she used to wrestle for before I even met her. So that says something like in itself, because she would actually practice and like work hard and stuff like that. So, but still, it definitely wasn't a common thing. But like, when you shout out to Title Match, I subscribe to them. And basically, a lot of their viral matches, it's from intergender. Tessa Blanchard versus Bowens, Anthony Bowens, and Thunder Rosa versus whoever. And then other companies too, Brian Cage versus Tessa, Brian Cage versus Jordan Grace. Brian Cage is a recurring role of intergender matches. One of the biggest guys getting thrown around by smaller women. And then, Tessa and Brian Cage, they faced each other in TNA. And then Tessa faced, what's his name? Sami Callihan, I think that's his name, and he beat him for the world title before all of that stuff happened. I've had a show where majority of the matches were intergender, not because I like intergender matches, it's because, one, I wanted to show that we can do this and make sense, and every match that consisted of an intergender made sense. It all made sense. And to me, I don't like a lot of them because they don't make sense. I saw one match last night. This girl, very, very skinny, was giving this dude that to be 6'2", 6'3", spine busters and TKOs. Like, she put him on the shoulder and all of that stuff. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, what the heck's going on here? And she won, by the way. So it's like, hey, come on, man. And then there's ways that women can be the man in a match, but it's not a lot of ways. What are y'all doing to my business? What are y'all doing to my business? Now there are a lot of people, they book women and they put women as their champions. They'll book them as the champ, the top champ. So they'll have a women's champ, then they'll have like the top champ. They'll be like, okay, the world champion is a woman. And it's not saying I'm against it. It's just that I probably won't face them. I'll say it that much. They, don't book me for that kind of stuff, because like I said, quality, psychology, theory, all of these things are very, very important to me. So I'm not about to jeopardize that because you want to go viral. Like, you can keep it. Like, with C3, we do good things and stuff like that. We have intergender matches. We have certain things and certain stipulations and things like that. But it all contributes to a story. Now, off of that, good things is the internet is a lot. It's a big thing. You could possibly get signed by WWE or AEW or other things. Joe Hendry is a perfect example of him having a song and making songs and stuff like that, and he became one of the most popular wrestlers on the internet, honestly. When I went to the expo in Indianapolis, it was a long line of people who wanted to take pictures and have him sign autographs and titles because he was like the biggest thing. And he's a decent wrestler too. You know, when he showed up to WrestleMania, people lost their minds because of the stuff that he's done. My little baby, my baby girl, she loved the Joe Hendry song. She'd be like, "Can you play the Joe Hendry song?" And she does it. So there's positive things to wrestling and the internet and all of that stuff too, but it's also negative. I do think it's affected both ways. I don't want to say equally, but it can be hand in hand, right? You know, some people look at me when I promote C3 and I do sponsorships and stuff like that, and it's pretty good. You know, it works pretty good. But sometimes a lot of stuff gets promoted that's negative and that's bad. And sometimes people promote it because they want to do controversial takes. I don't rock with it. I don't rock with it. So to me, it's subjective. I do think that it's helped people, but I've also think that it's messed people up and exposed a lot of stuff with business and stuff. So that's how I feel about it. You can say it's worse, you can say it's gotten better. Some people got more opportunities, but then some people are just turning around and saying they're wrestlers, and just because they're going viral, people are booking them with no wrestling experience. You know, I was very vocal about the Walmart boys getting booked, and they wasn't even properly trained at the time. But they took a spot of a trained wrestler because these companies wanted to do that. So wanted to speak about that, but let me know what your thoughts are. I just pulled up at work. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Chris Classic. Let's take it home.